Hey, Dave.
Long time no talk.
Yeah, tell me about it. All right. I think it's just you and me right now. Let's see.
Yes. Oh, I see.
Hey, O'Neill. How are you? Good. People keep asking to join, but they Hello, how are you guys doing?
Hi, how are you? Good.
Someone wants to join the call. How do I admit them? Okay. I don't know. I don't know. I think O'Neill was trying to join. Mercedes, are you on? I don't know if that's. No. Okay. All right. So let's see. I keep trying to admit someone and they keep, oh, there you go. Okay. All right, cool. So Dave, all right. Thank you everyone for joining. So what I wanted to do is we need to, as a region, get better at sales. I think there are a couple of properties on here that really need to get going when it comes to sales, on property sales. So on this call, I have Dave Krantz, who is out of the Lake Crest region, but has a lot of experience on sales. So Dave, what I wanted to do is I wanted to pick your brain. We have never done sales before. It's not natural to us. It's an unknown. And so, let's pretend we have a hotel in a robust market and we just don't have any sales efforts and we've never had it. So basically, only revenue that comes on is whatever finds its way to us, either by way of someone picking up the phone and calling the front desk or booking online, right? That's essentially all we are doing right now. And you and I have had discussions in the past about, hey, this is what we make our salespeople do in your region. This is how you track their effectivity, right? Does it, are they making their sales calls? What is the expectation of what sales calls they will do? Meaning frequency, who are they doing it with? What's the objective of it? How do we document it? So that's kind of what the purpose of this is just to understand how do we do it, because candidly to me, it's another world and it's a different language, and I don't know anything about it.
Gotcha. And what type of property do we have? What type of property do we have?
So the economy, La Quinta, Red Roof, Days Inn, that type of hotel. So typical Lake Crest properties.
Okay.
In major markets that, like St. Pete, Tampa, Connecticut, Stamford, New Haven, things like that. Right.
Okay, and we don't have salespeople. The GMs are doing it. Our operators.
Yeah. So I think one of the things we're going to need to do is try to get an idea of, hey, based on what Dave is telling us, does it make sense for us to do a dedicated salesperson? We have these straggler properties that are one-offs that are not, we don't have economies of scale. There's no other properties nearby. Then there is something else where, we may have 2 or 3 properties nearby. So I think, just trying to understand what is a sales call, what do you do, where do you go, how do you get the list of who to solicit, things like that. And then kind of back into property by property specifically, say, hey, does it make sense to get a salesperson here? Or does it make sense, start making the GM do it because they have an MOD on site that kind of helps them and is a right-hand person, that type of thing.
Gotcha. Kind of broad based with it. First, obviously, is what are we doing internally to sell?
Nothing.
Somebody walks up to my desk and says, I'm looking for rooms. I'm going to be a contract. I'm assuming contractors. Let's start there. Somebody comes to my desk. They say, look, I'm going to be here. I'm going to have workers in the area for the next 3 to 4 months. How is that being handled? Is that just a front desk saying this is the rate, or are they getting the information to the operator? So the first thing I do make them keep at the front desk is a simple lead sheet.
Okay.
That if somebody walks, let's start with what's right there in front of us. If somebody does come in, say Monday night, and they're looking for rooms because they're going to have a project or a job in the area, I want that front desk to give them the best rate they can that night if they can't actually negotiate. Okay. But at the same time, get the info for them so that my manager can contact you back in the morning when they get back in and have that lead sheet available to go into that GM's box. That's step one. Let's capture what we have coming through our door with it. What are we looking at I'm just going to make some notes while I'm talking to you also. What are we looking at in the market with it? Are we looking at our competition? Are we doing the old school drive-bys if we are looking for very short-term pickup in business? Some things do sound old school, but getting up and driving out about 6 o'clock on a Tuesday evening through your competitor's parking lots, having your cell phone, text yourself, call yourself. I often just call myself and leave myself a voicemail. And I have 3 trucks, XYZ Corporation, tags are from New Jersey. And I can go back and look up that door company name, the name that's on the door of the truck. I can look up the state to try and at least find the company to establish contact with it. And then follow that up with a call once I find the company. Hey, I was in the intersection. I manage XYZ Hotel. I noticed some of your vehicles in the area. Do you have work going on? Could I offer you a rate? So that's another way to go after short term. See what's in the parking lots of your adjoining properties. Do that Tuesday evening drive-by. 5, 6 rooms, 4 nights a week over the course of a month from one can add up very fast for us. And again, you're thinking short term with it. Condition of the properties, depending on what the properties are they economy to scale? Again, for short term business, do we have a flyer that we can leave out locally? Can we actually have a funeral flyer? That's another short-term one I use with a set funeral rate that I will.
So can you explain what that is?
Funeral homes. I always go to all the funeral homes in the market and offer a funeral rate for anybody that might need rooms. Funerals are unexpected. They're last minute, and sadly, they're always happening. In fact, January, February is, I hate to say, the dying season, but we do work funeral homes with it. We just drop by, introduce ourselves, get a feel for them, leave a flyer. If you have clients that are coming in for a funeral, we'd like to help out with the room. We can provide this discount with it. Typically, you just want a quick, simple generated flyer for funerals. The other types of business that'll be coming in your way, are you doing any group business? Does it warrant group business? A La Quinta warrants group business. A Days Inn, depending on whether it's exterior or interior corridor, may warrant group business. A Red Roof Motel 6, not so much. I'm not going to pull much in on groups. But that being said, how much have you discussed sales with your area director or whatever they call the position based upon your franchise? Have you made a call? Have you invited that individual to come have lunch with you at the property? Have you gotten
to know? This is the franchise area director?
Whichever brand it is, whether it's Wyndham, whether it's G6, whether it's Red Roof. Establish that contact, and I know they have different titles in all of them, but establish that contact with them. What do we have for a group sales? Sounds odd. You think Motel 6, you don't think group sales. Yet I had a 52 room piece of business that I got through Motel 6 for one property that lasted for 9 months at $99 at a Motel 6. But the other thing I will tell you in the economy segment, because I do see Days In on here, in the economy segment, we do not respond, and this is nothing negative. This is actually a good thing for us. We don't respond to requests from our franchises. We don't get to know how does the sales process work within the franchise. We need to respond to those inquiries quickly. We need to look at RFPs and actually respond to those. And I know they seem challenging at the beginning. It's a lot of work to fill it out, a lot of stuff you have to do. But again, that one piece can kind of pay off for all of it. So you need to understand your specific brand's sales process and what's available to you, because we're paying that franchise anyway. Now, you know, you mentioned different properties. I don't like a sales effort at my Wingate and Destin. I'll take group. I don't put a lot of heavy on it. In fact, I got rid of the sales manager there, consolidated that and the FOM into an AGM because we're going to sell out 7-8 months of the year. Why do I need group in there? I need group November to February. Other properties, I need anything I can find every day of the week. So your market determines it with it. I mention that because at least on the La Quinta side, they have a not too expensive sales program that you may be able to get into if you have a really good La Quinta. And I say if you have a really modern La Quinta, it's updated, you're running it as mid-scale, that one, it would probably be better to use their sales program for an investment for 1 year versus hiring a salesperson. And then using their sales program, that'll get you an individual. I think it runs you about $900 a month. There's a cost to it, $800, it depends. If you're already using their revenue management, they have a discount that takes it down a little bit if you combine the two in what they call a double play. But that individual will sit there and fill out every RFP you get for the next year. And I look at those as jumper cable expenses. My property's kind of dead. I'm not going to have time to be looking and filling out every RFP. But if I spend this money, I can have an individual dedicated to doing that to get me back into the market. So sales is not just a group standpoint. It's getting yourself into the RFPs and the corporations that you can through your franchise with those Wyndham level ones that you have. Are you in Fed Rooms? Are you in Carson Laglet? Are you visible in American Express? Are you participating in all the programs that the franchise offers you to begin with? Because in the mid-tier franchises, Choice, Wyndham, you got to do all the work yourself. The people are there. If you reach out, they will guide you, but you got to do all that work yourself to actually fill this stuff out with it. And then the other problem is you have an RFP season, which is coming up on us in March and April. So ask your area directors about the RFP system. How do I get in more pieces of business? How do I get to more corporate business? What do I need to fill out to do it? Because you have designated salespeople for all these clients within the franchise. If you have the Motel 6, ask them for all their construction reports, their Hoover reports. There's actually, typically they'll send, I don't remember the names top of my head. Typically they can send me 4 or 5 reports. This will show me projects. This will show me contractors who've won awards to projects coming up in my area. It will show me the dates, the cost of the project, and more importantly, it'll give me the contact's email and phone number. I ask those for Motel 6, but then I hand it off to a Clarion, to a Sleep In, and I use it throughout the whole market with it for our salespeople to have lead lists to call on. Everybody following me so far? Now, you titled this thing SWOT. I wasn't sure what the A stood for because I'm used to more of what's called a SWOT, S-W-O-T, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And, you know, while we still look at that as being the old school, and it is the old school sales and marketing plan, which I don't believe is necessary if you don't have a full service property. In limited service, I think we can overkill it. But at the same time, what do we know about our competition? How many rooms do they have? Are they interior? Are they exterior? And the reason for understanding, do they have Wi-Fi? Do they have breakfast? Or is it a red roof with coffee? Is it a red roof plus that's actually doing a breakfast? What is our competition doing so that when we're talking to a client, we do know what our strengths are to sell and what to avoid bringing up with it? That said, Googling, if you got a La Quinta, you should be Googling the comforts, the qualities, the Best Westerns, anything that's sort of your market segment. Google them to find out what business do they have coming into the property. Look for those opportunities. Look at their website. What businesses are they listing? Are you listing the same businesses? What locations and attractions are they listing? Are you listing the same locations and attractions with it? That's the sort of the starting basis. And I'm kind of field dumping a lot of stuff here, gentlemen. But you know, if we aren't doing the basics, we're probably missing lost opportunity that's kind of close at hand. Does anybody have questions and everything I just dumped that I can go more in detail for you?
No, I think that's a good overview. Now, for example, you know, we just acquired a property, and someone says, "Hey, Dave, we got to ramp up our sales efforts here." So we'll reach out to the DFO or the FOD, whatever you call, whatever their title is, ask them for the construction reports, ask them for RFP enrollment, things like that. But now I want to put someone in a car and make sales visits.
Okay, so first, if you are just acquiring a property, or most of them, I always say a lot of the successes I have are because of poor management before me. It makes you look good. Have we gone through our history at the property? Have we gone through our reports? And if we do have a drawer, there's a drawer in every one where they keep their little group folios and they keep all the groups sitting there in little files for years. Have we gone through that information first to reintroduce ourselves to every client that's already used us? That's the in-house one. I mean, every single salesperson. There it is. No matter whether it's a big property that does a lot of group or a property that does very little, I want you to call every single client that's been in here in the last 5 years, introduce yourself, and talk and see if they have future business for you before I put people in cars. Putting people in cars is identifying, again, where does your property fit into the market and what can you do out of it? If we have a sports complex, if we have a college in the area, we want to look for sports teams. We want to look for tournaments. We do want to get over to those individuals. After we research it online, find out about the campus, the college, the sports complex, and then after we research it, either A, hopefully find a way to get in the door there through that with some contacts online, or then we make the drop off where you, again, you know, we're not printing out brochures anymore because everybody's in an online mentality, but you need something to hand out, even if that is a flyer that you make up. You know, we have group rates available, ABC, interior corridor, 3-story property, great location, feature and breakfast pool, whatever you have to sell, create a flyer that you can hand out to somebody so that you're actually going out to leave something in case you can't speak with them. Following up. Follow up on every call. No means just tell me more in the hospitality business. No, I don't need you anymore. I don't need rooms. I don't need this. No, the property's not what we need. Well, you know, no, I don't have anything at this time. Can I call you back in the future? Can I check back in 2 months, see what you got? Be repetitive with whoever you speak with, and definitely be repetitive with whoever uses you. When you do get a piece of business, are we asking the questions? Are we peeling away that onion? You know, oh, you're working at the site. What are you doing over there? You're doing the flooring. Who's doing the plumbing? Who's doing the layout of it? Who's doing the roofing? Are there other opportunities at that site for you to get in with it? And again, think about your front desk clerks. Are they asking the purpose of the stay? Oh, good evening, Mr. Smith. I see you have a reservation here. I'm going to get you checked in while I'm doing that. What brought you to town this week? Are we asking that what brought you to town question of every single guest? It's not prying. It's a casual conversation. But again, if it opens up the potential of business, oh, I'm here. I'm working at such and such a place. Okay, appreciate that information. They jot it down. They get it over to you. You can look it up. You can also follow up with a phone call to that client's room. Hey, Mr. Smith, I noticed that you've been staying with us this week. My clerk mentioned you were in town for work with it. How was your stay? Then open up the conversation. Well, does anybody else over there? Does the company need more rooms? If we aren't asking the questions, most of it's asking the questions to find out what's already in our place. As for cold calling and driving around, I really don't like cold calls unless you're going to a destination center, a place where you know other people have to come for business. This goes back to sports complexes. This goes to funeral homes, any type of facility, sometimes very large churches. If you have a very large church in the area, a very large temple in your area, that's a place where you want to visit, get to know them, offer them a decent discounted flat rate to get your foot in the door with them and kind of keep up that relationship. It doesn't hurt to drop off cookies occasionally. That's, again, old school, but to just drop something off 2 months after you came by, that helps you get your foot in the door. But you got to identify these locations. And again, Googling your competition, they might have a lot of the sites listed for you. Does that open up other questions?
Yeah. I get, so you talked about funeral homes, hospitals, colleges, sports complexes. What are some must stop and give attention to type of businesses? In addition
We
to
just
that?
named a few of them. When you look in a hospital, write down patient relations. Typically, you can Google patient relations in the hospital or find a site. That's usually you get your foot in the door there. But hospitals are definitely one of them. It depends, again, very much on your property, sir. Red Roof Inn, I'll go over to Home Depot and put my GM Red Roof Inn thing on the board where all the contractors hang all their information. Doesn't hurt to do that occasionally because they've got a board, at least down here and through the south, every Home Depot you walk into, they have that board there by the door where all the contractors post all their little informations and flyers and stuff. I used to always stick cards there. It's just a chance. The more places you're available, the more likely you are to get seen. One thing I used to do is drop my cards off at the dry cleaners. Leave cards at dry cleaners. Corporate people come in town, they tend to run over and sometimes get dry cleaning done. Do we have business cards? There's another big question. Do we have cards that list ourselves as the general manager? Or do we just have a front desk card? Who is handling it? Those things come into question, not knowing the hotels and the levels with them. But get a business card if you don't have any. Make sure they're at the front desk available and get them spread out through town. Now, again, if I had an interior corridor, 3 to 4 story La Quinta, again, differing a little bit, I might look at my local chambers of commerce and I might look at the investment to become a member of a chamber of commerce for that type of property. Best Western, Comfort, Sleep, La Quinta, those tier of properties, because that's going to give you the access to all of their members. Now, depending on where you are, if you're in a big metropolitan area, I wouldn't do it because it's going to be super expensive. There's no return. But if you find a $500 or $600 chamber and you're actually going to follow up and make the phone calls, go to a couple events to see what you can find, that $500 or $600 investment, you really just got to turn $25,000 to $3,000 to get back to even on it. Chances are you will luck into that if you put in some time and effort in it. Convention Visitors Bureau, if you have one in town, most everybody does. A lot of them are county or government run nowadays. Still doesn't hurt to drop by again with the card and introduce yourself. And how can we do more business? What do you need from us? And even if I had a smaller property, again, it could be an exterior corridor property, I might still have a chance at landing some sports teams or some other types of business from it. Trying to think off the top of my head with other places with it. Again, pick the parking lots, look for construction sites, get the reports, call your area directors with it. Outside of that, most of your local calling for a hotel typically is only if you are a full service or you have the banquet meeting space with it. Otherwise, you have to think of what causes the demand with it. We do have, again, I know you all already do the homeless business, but do you have a local homeless shelter? Do they need overflow when it's wintertime? Drop by. If you got some stuff you're going to throw out, drop off the blankets you're going to throw away and give it to them. Establish a relationship with them. If your building is only running 30, 40% in the winter, you got wings sitting empty, a couple of rooms aren't going to hurt you if you go ahead and you actually manage it with it. Other than that, typically locally, that's where you want to be targeting with it all. And the rest is just following up on the reports and information. And again, following up on RFPs for your property, group requests. The person that calls first is typically going to get the business.
Okay. How about churches? I guess that just popped up in my head.
Yeah, I mentioned churches earlier.
Okay.
You do want
okay.
the size of the church matters. if you have large churches in the area, they will be hosting events, they will be hosting retreats, they will have visitors coming in to preach and to train. If you have training centers in the area, I don't know if you have a driving school for tractor trailers, if you have some sort of training facility, finding a way to get your foot in the door there is critical. But again, you got to go in and do the research and Google these businesses to see if you can establish a gatekeeper. Who's making the decision and how do I get my foot in the door there?
Okay. Interesting. And then from a leadership standpoint or of the property, what is your oversight? So how do you keep track of the sales efforts?
Weekly meeting with the salesperson, review the calls they're making. Where are the successes? Where are the failures? Typically, the GM would be taking over that role, reviewing the call sheet every Friday with them, making sure that they're contacting the inside guest with it. And again, depending on the product level, this plays in more or less. If you are in that mid-tier property, you have a very good days in, you have an average or above La Quinta, you want to be working your inside sales in the hotel itself with it. But you got to monitor them. You got to set an expectation. Typically, what you want to tell people, give yourself 3 to 4 hours on Monday to shut that office door, sit down and start Googling, researching, create yourself a list to call to qualify. They should spend 3 to 4 hours doing that, and then they should be making about 10 to 15 calls daily on 4 days. You should be looking for an average of 40 to 50 calls made a week. Who did you call? What number did you call? What was the result on the form? GMs should then call 1 or 2 of those people to say, Mr. Smith, I see my director of sales my sales manager called you last Tuesday with it. I'm the general manager of the property. I really appreciate you taking a call. I just want to follow up with you. Number 1, that's telling them you as the GM cares. But number 2, you're also checking that your sales manager actually made that call. It accomplishes 2 different things for you. And if you stop and think about it, if your sales manager makes, let's say, 40 calls a week, you're going to be lucky if 4 or 5 of those even become qualified calls where we are going to get something out of it now or in the future. And out of that, it might still lead down to 1 or 2. But, if they're shutting the door and they're making their calls for an hour and a half a day or so, that should be getting them through it. They don't have to be a full-fledged sales manager at a 70-room economy. They can be a front office manager who is very well-spoken, who wants to do a little more, a front desk clerk who you can train to do it with it, who can make those calls for an hour or 2 or 3 times a week. If we just start on something, even if it's just having somebody make 5 calls at 3 o'clock when they finish up 4 days a week, you'll luck into something. You got to think of it like fishing. If you aren't constantly casting, you're not going to get a bite. You got to constantly be reaching out. And a lot of, in our business, what we're doing today, right now, what we're doing today and what we're doing this week, we're going to see the impact of that 4 to 5 months down the road. The efforts don't materialize. If we're hurting today, it's because we failed 4 months ago. When we look at, and that follows into revenue management all the way across the board. What we're doing today and this week, what's going on this week doesn't matter. What happened last week, it's gone. What we're doing now is impacting 3, 4, and 5 months down the road, especially in the sales and marketing standpoint. You just want to blanket your backyard market depending on where you're at. If you're in a metropolitan area, that is probably 1 mile to 2 miles. If you're in a suburban area where everything's laid out, that might be a 3 to 5 mile zone. Within that backyard market, in that zone around your property, do I know everything about my competition? Do I know who's staying there? And if I'm talking to somebody, do I know where I have something better than my competition? Do I know what the guest wants? Too often we're just thinking the guest wants a rate. Ask the questions. What's important to you when you're talking to a client? Find out that information so we understand the client when we're talking to them. But again, if we aren't speaking to the guest, we're not going to find out that they even have a need. Uncovering the needs is the first step. So there's 2 things. Marketing is getting your information out there. Marketing is making the connections so people refer back to you. And then on top of it, there's the sales part of it, which is actually going back and trying to sell your product. And to do that, we have to know where we're strongest against our competition. If I'm talking to Mr. Smith And I've got a 60-room exterior red roof property, and he's a construction worker, and he's staying at the 3-story interior corridor Days Inn. Well, Mr. Smith, number one, I can beat that rate by $15. I'm going to save you on every single room comes through the door with it. This is my phone number. You're going to hear from me. And the other thing is, I can put you right here on this one wing. I'd like to show you a room. We have the micro fridges, everything that you need, and you can back your trucks up. So you're going to be looking at your vehicle the whole time you're there. You're not going to be worried what's going on in the parking lot because you can walk right out the door to your vehicle. There's always a selling point we don't think of if we can think of how to get it over to the client with it. And
Okay.
think about your building too, because if you don't have micro fridges, it's all a null discussion. Because you can't keep contractors if you won't spend the money on the micro fridges.
Yeah. So you had mentioned an average of 40 to 50 calls a week that the salesperson does. Who are they calling? Where are they getting the 40 to 50 leads for every week?
Most of it, you can initially get it by calling the existing clients that they've got throughout. Everybody's come through your building the last 3 to 5 years. Any list that you can get from your franchise with it. Again, I'd have to pull up the emails, but I could send you a list of the reports to ask for, at least with your red roofs and with your Motel 6s with it. Your area directors should be able to help you with your Wyndham product and your Best Western and your Choice product to give you some guidance on where can I find clients to call from. They have the list available to us at no charge. We just have to ask for them. Primarily the list they will have will be construction, but take your look, Quinta, I'm sure it's an interior corridor property. They would have, they'll have a list of all your motor coach market business where you can find out who has come to you. They call them bank list, tour travel list. They'll have the clients that have used you, and they have the corporate list, by the way, who have used, not you, but have used their product in your market and how many rooms they've used. And they provide these lists to the business accounts and the travel accounts. The business accounts, so every March or April, depending on what brand you're with, that's so you can narrow down to say, okay, these are the 5 corporations that I want to submit an RFP to be one of their selected properties to sell to in the next year. You do that with, and it surprises me how many of our franchises, when I walk in, aren't doing it. They're doing nothing at RFP season. They're not going in to qualify who do they want. They're not getting the list to see what businesses have been using them, and they're not proposing their hotel to that business. And again, that's free. It's a day's worth of work sitting at your desk for a couple hours, drinking a cup of coffee, looking through the list. It's all Excel with it. And then you pick the companies, and each RFP is going to have, 100 to 300 questions when you look at it, but your franchise is going to pre-populate it 80% of those questions. You're just going to be filling in the blanks on the rest. It's not that hard to complete them. But if you're not completing and making the effort on it, the corporations aren't going to see you that already use your business.
Okay. Interesting. All right. So, in terms of templates, whether it's a flyer, whether it's how to respond to an inquiry over the phone, what do you find best? Do the brands have stuff like that? Do you just find out on the internet?
Brand. I mean, I know our Choice products, we have it, and I believe we have it in Wyndham where you can customize your own flyers and print them out. So when you go into Choice now with Choice, you can go in, they actually have preset flyers where you just populate your property's info, and they have them for the different types of market and business. I know Wyndham did have it. I haven't used it with Wyndham in a long time, but I'm sure it's still there if I was to dig and ping around a little bit.
Okay. One of the challenges that we have faced is, there are some major hospitals, right? So when you're at a children's hospital, things like that are very large. Sometimes they're the best in the state, or they're the best in a 3 or 4 hour geography. So there are a lot of patients who the patient is there, but the family's staying in a hotel somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are struggling to get our foot in the door just to even talk to someone.
Get the site up, look for patient relations, like I mentioned earlier. Start with that contact. It may, depending on the facility, it may or may not get you anywhere. But, I'm XYZ Hotel. I am a mile and a half from your hospital with it. I see a lot of guests, I always say, I see a lot of guests coming to my hotel who are here because of your hospital. I would like to get my information to other guests as needed. Can I drop by and drop off some information? Can I get listed on your website? You'll find a lot of them will have a website with the hotels directly to it. Can I get you a rate on it? That's kind of where you start trying to get your foot into the door with them. Again, if you're a little more mid-scale or up, your chamber would be the one that would be able to help you there too with connections. Who is sponsors at your chamber? I use the chambers for my larger properties to get my foot in the door. That's really what it's about at the end of the day.
Okay. And then, so we talked about that. What about, I guess, churches, right? So, I know one very recent example, trying to get in touch with the person at the church, and the church, every time we go during normal hours, is closed.
Yeah, you're going to have to look at the church. And again, the size of the church matters. When I'm
Okay.
talking about churches, I'm talking about churches that have 300-400 to a couple thousand in their congregation, not the typical usual 40 people on a Sunday church. It's not going to get you a lot out of a small church. If you can make a contact there, it doesn't hurt. The bigger churches are the ones that will have the classrooms, the trainings, the missions. They'll have instructors coming in. They'll be hosting events. And typically, you probably should know or be able to find out real quick churches in my town. Google it and look for the large ones. Then identify there who's on their list of contacts. You look at some of the larger a Catholic church that has a school with it that also does Spanish services, Latino services.
Okay.
I use them mainly for quinces, for banquet halls. But when you look at that church site, you're going to have 20, 30 contacts to go through, depending on whether it's a school, whether it's this, whether it's that. You'll have administrative contacts. It's, again, a matter of making a phone call and taking the no. Once you find the contact, making the phone call to ask the question. Hey, this is Dave. I'm with the Sleep In such and such. I always say, I've had guests staying here that have been coming in for your church. I don't know if it's for weddings or if it's for events, but is there a way I can get my information into your church or make sure anybody coming in for whatever you've got going on might know me? But I always say, hospital doesn't matter. Your guests have already been with me. I always make it sound that way to start off, because it kind of opens up the door. I'm reaching out to you because you've already kind of helped me, whether you knew it or not. Doesn't matter if they stayed with you or not. They don't know that.
Okay. Banquet facilities. How do we drum up banquet leads?
Banquets are, so what size banquet facilities?
Whether it's a 50% or a 200%, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Banquets are where you do want to get more involved locally with putting out material and dropping by. So now you're adding in the florist, the tuxedo, the bridal shops, the party shops. You've got to get your information to all of those. You should have a flyer that mentions for your wedding, reunion, quince, or special event, please contact us. We have great rates on the room and great rates for your guest rooms. That's all the flyer should say with it. We typically are not doing food and beverage if we can avoid it at all. So typically we're letting people cater in. If we're letting people cater in, maybe we should also make contacts with caterers. So who's doing catering in my market? Because somebody's getting married, somebody's having an event, they're calling up a couple people. They're looking for, again, a church, a party store, where I get my materials, where print shops, where am I going to get my invitations printed up? Now, a lot of that's back online with it, but I bet you still have a local print shop somewhere. But also, the caterer's making money by having a place where they can bring people in. So you want to know your caterers. If you are doing the functions where we do DJs, they have DJs, but we only let them go till 11 o'clock. But you know what? Every DJ gets my card that comes into my hotel, because the client is already talking to them. And when the client's like, okay, I'm looking at this place, I've got this place. When that DJ, when that florist, when that decorator says, oh yeah, but I know this property too, you might want to get a quote from them. Number one. Number two, do we know our comp set? Who else has banquet facilities in my market? Have I gone to meet them? Have I said, look, my Saturdays in May, June go very fast. If I don't have if I don't have the space available, I'd like some place to refer them to, and I'd like somebody that would do the same for me. So we can begin bouncing to each other. So, there's where I'm sitting at right now, Clarion. In my town, there's a Hilton Garden Inn. I know the owner, I know the GM, I know the salesman, I know everybody in that building. I go to that building on behalf of my VFW to greet honor flights. But anytime that sales manager's got a group or an event that she can't fit, guess who she calls? She calls me. Do you have anything in the area? Do any of your hotels, can they accommodate it? It makes sense with the banquet facilities to know your competition. And that includes where are banquet facilities in my area. That includes the fire hall, that includes the VFW, that includes the American Legion, plus your hotel comp set. So that when their space is filled, some family comes walking in, they're like, oh, we can't do it this date. No, we can't do it this date. Look, I know this guy. Give him a call, see what's available. Word of mouth can eventually carry you. If you've got 100 or larger hall, I'm going to tell you, people get these feelings about these quinceaneras, the Spanish 15th birthdays. You do 5 of those, you do 5 of them right, and you make 5 people feel important, not looked down upon. You will not have to sell your banquet halls on Saturday night. It will start selling itself. I have known multi-generational people who have used my banquet halls for their quinces, down family, handing it off with it. The hotel I'm in, the restaurant's leased out. That guy's got the same business, same clientele that we've had for 20 years over here because of that with the quinces. It depends on what's in your market with it. The moving over to the Muslim side of it, loud people when they have an event, but they ain't drinking. But typically Friday, Saturday, Sunday events, 3-day affairs, wanting a large giant venue on Saturday night, smaller venues on Friday and on Sunday. Who can we connect in that? If we're out eating at a restaurant and come across, we just got to be thinking about marketing our hotel every time we come in contact with anybody. And again, a lot of your restaurants in the area, if you look it up, a lot of your ethnic restaurants are catering. Your Spanish restaurants, your halal restaurant, even your Indian, they're catering. And they're catering out because they've got the kitchen. Do you know those individuals that own these facilities? Hey, I've got a banquet hall. You ever got an event? Come see me. I can hook you up for a good price. Maybe sometimes even give a kickback. I had a decorator. Every event she brought me that was over $5,000, I gave her $100 too. And that decorator actually put together, this is quinces, she put together a book on her own of the photos of the events she had done at our facility. She was actually my best salesperson out there bringing people back my way. It's establishing those relationships with the banquet facilities. If you have a banquet facility, you probably do need a salesperson to some extent. I'll tell you that right now. Or it's going to be sitting dark, an empty room, it's empty revenue. You never want those banquet facilities empty. 40 person, 50 person, I wouldn't. But if I'm over 100 person, I want something in that event hall every Saturday. That's what I would think with it. If that helped on the banquet side, think about where somebody's got to go if they have a function. Again, think about that. They got to go to a party city. They got to go to a decorator. They got to go to a florist. They got to go to a tuxedo shop, a bridal shop. Your information should be there. That person should at least know your hotel name if they can't remember your name to get that referral. Make referrals during events. Take a moment if you're trying to build it up. Take a moment, go in that room, thank the client, and ask how everything's going. I know we're always worried, oh, they're going to say they need more tables, more tables, want this and else. We got to talk to them to get things going. So, and I mean, we are talking to a minority group, but I can tell you this, when I walk into a hall, whether it is Afghani, Pakistani, whether it's Spanish, whatever that group is, African-American, my walking around a few tables, how is everything, talking to the person that booked them and thanking them professionally really sends a message they appreciate with it. And again, that's what leads to getting the business back from those communities.
Got it. Okay. All right. So I think this has been a good introductory call. I guess any final tips for a newbie as we
I
get
dumped a
started?
lot of information. Get the lead sheets up, involve your front desk. Think about incentivizing your front desk on the contractor side. If you give me a lead and that lead leads to so much business, I'll give you a $50 Visa card. I'll give you something in return with it. Incentivize your front desk to sell for you. Pay for the leads from them. I mean, if somebody said, look, I can give you $400 a night, 4 nights a week for 6 weeks, but I want $100. You'd give them $100. Think about your front desk clerks in that sense, that if they can bring you the lead that gets you the contractor, get you something along those lines, how do we incentivize them and keep them involved? And even if we're not going to incentivize them, get the lead sheets out front and make the follow-up phone calls. Learn and again, I apologize for the large group and I'm not sure the experience level with it, but if you haven't, learn your franchise's rate codes to identify the corporate accounts. When you're going through your audit, looking at who owes you, looking at who hasn't paid, and why was this rate adjustment done? When you're looking through that sheet on your last night's in-house, the rate codes are there. And if you learn the corporate rate codes, or you can just print them out or type them up and stick them on your computer screen right to the side of it, when you're going through, circle that room. Follow back up with that corporate account. Hey, I see you stayed with us. I know that, this rate code is set aside for Amex. This rate code is set aside for Amway, or Amtrak or whatever. What brought you to town with it? How was the stay? I want to make sure you're happy. Is there anything else we could do? Is there anybody I could contact that might need rooms also? Reach out to that guest. It's a quick call. It's a quick drop by. Work your breakfast rooms. Talk to the people in your breakfast rooms. But once you identify the room, it's nothing sitting there at 8:30 in the morning doing your reports and doing all that to take a few names and hand them to the front desk and say, hey, you know what, Sally? If any of these people come down to check out while I'm here, can you take a moment and come get me so I can meet them? Now you're not even making the call. Sally's like, oh, that room 318 that you wanted to talk to, they're here. Now you get to walk behind the front desk. Hey, I just wanted to meet you. I noticed you were here with such and such a company. How was the stay? Move into your spiel.
And what's the spiel? You can give us a drive.
Exactly. I want to thank you for well, first, how was everything? And then once they say, hey, it was good. It was what I expected with it. Well, we appreciate you staying. I know your company's been staying here with it. Is there anybody I can contact to maybe even do better by y'all rate-wise, or perhaps do more rooms with you, something we could do to entice more of your workers to stay with us? That's the spiel. The fact that you're a manager and you came out and talked already put you above almost every place they stay at. This goes back to those at least 3 points of contact. They got check-in, they got check-out, maybe, if they come by the desk. And sometimes you get lucky with a housekeeper or breakfast, but if you get a guest who gets 3 points of contact personally, that's going to be a happy guest. A GM they see a GM and a GM speaks to them first. You've got a friend. It doesn't happen as much as we would like to think it does. We talk about these things, but the execution is where we fail. Again, think about that. Learn your rate codes for your clients. Get the lead sheets up so that you know that room 202 was here looking for rooms last night. And just all you got to do is hand it over to that front desk clerk in the AM. Look, I'm in the office. If I'm around, you see this person check out, come get me. I just want to thank them for staying with us. And that adds that personal touch to it.
Got it. Okay, sounds good. So I think gotten a lot of good ideas. We'll circle back. We'll go discuss this internally on our side, and then maybe a follow-up call that goes into a little more detail about any of the specific things that come up.
Yeah, I can put something together with a little more preparation for you.
Yes. I'm sorry. I appreciate you accommodating.
I love this stuff, as you can tell. I can talk about it all day, but I can put something that's a little more fine-tuned if I know what the product is we're talking about.
Right.
Something that's more geared towards versus the blanket dump.
Yep.
It's just a huge info dump, but how do I do it and where do I get going?
Right.
The first step is get up and try. The second thing, again, like I said, no means tell me more. You didn't tell me enough. That's what it says. Nope, I don't need any rooms. Nope, I don't. Well, you're not telling me enough. And then lastly, no is not a bad thing. You're going to get 100 no's before you get that one huge win. But if we, again, like fishing, if we are not casting, we're not going to stumble into it. But when you stumble on some of these groups, I mean, that's what really makes me excited when I get one. If you keep at it and stumble on it, that piece of business can sometimes be pretty amazing for a property. Your problem is you got to deal with it a year later explaining why your revenue's down. But, you find it by putting the effort in and asking the questions.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Sure.
We'll be in touch.
Okay. Good talking, everybody. Good
Thank you.
evening,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.
Have a great day.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.
Yes, sir. Take care, gentlemen.